Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Deep Blue Renegade podcast. My name is Molly. I'm also known as the Deep Blue Renegade, and I'd like to welcome you guys to episode 54. Today is Saturday, August 23rd, 2014, and we are hanging out in the tower today. It's a beautiful day so far, and I'm probably recording a little earlier than I usually would because I ended up getting a phone call from my husband this morning. The Just Sweet Lovable one screwed up, and he left for the airport an hour later than he was supposed to, so I called American Airlines, and I moved his flight to later. And the short answer is, as of 24 hours ago, I didn't even know he was going to be coming this weekend. So he has another job interview, which is really exciting. But I ended up needing to put him on the 4:45 flight instead of the 11:30 flight. So silly. So as a result, I realized I really needed to record today before I showed up. So I'm super duper excited about that for sure. But what is it? The good news is that he gets to have his socks a week earlier. Yay! I finally finished Maurice. This is a pattern by Stephanie van der Linden. It is from Op Art Socks, which is an amazingly cool book. And this pattern was inspired by the artwork of M.C. Escher. So the tessellated lizards are fun. Now my sock blockers aren't nearly long enough for giant long man feet, but it is pretty much there. I ended up modding the toes so that they're the normal toe that I make in socks, which is fine. I'm just moving stuff around so you can see the two surprise lizards. So there's the lizard on the bottom of the foot, and there's the lizard on the heel. So really cool. I guess we'll find out whether or not I ended up making the toes too long later today. I'm not sure how stabby I'll get if I have to ring up the toes please, but I'm not going to show them to you guys or even mention it if it turns out that I do need to ring up the stupid toes. They are a good bit longer than they used to be, so I'm really hoping that his chicken legs will fit into these socks. And off they go. So, really excited about that. I've been working on these. When I ended up updating my Ravelry project page, I've been working on them since March 24. This hasn't been a good year for socks, has it? So what other things can I say about the socks? So I'm using two yarns. I ended up using fiber webs, which is a Bay Area dyer. I ended up getting the yarn in a swap. And I also use the Etsy SR Kretzer On Your Toes, which I ended up getting from my local yarn shop in Indiana. Because, you know what? For how much per ball that thing was going for, it was sort of hard to pass up a deal like that. And hopefully he really likes them. I don't know. He's going to like them. But if he washes them, I am the washer of the socks. So, because I finished the stuff that's been on my needles like forever, I was also going to show you guys how much yarn I had left over. So, I think I haven't weighed it. I was like a little panicked last night that I couldn't find my scale, but it was still packed away from moving to the apartment, whatever, like a month ago. I guess I haven't needed to weigh yarn in like a month. Craziness. So I ended up rewinding the balls so I could throw them in the pile of sock scraps or start a new bag of sock scraps. Yeah, these aren't going to fit in the bag, are they? I'm not sure what else I'm going to do with these, but there is a decent amount left. I'll have to weigh them to figure out how much yardage I ended up using on the socks. I'm pretty sure I used at least 400 yards for these, so that shouldn't be too crazy. And obviously, this was one of the things I was hoping to finish for Stash Fest. I didn't mention this last week. I totally failed. You want me to show you why it was that I totally failed? Well, I showed you guys last week how I was dissatisfied with my sweater. Oh, and I ended up moving the camera position so you can maybe actually see what I'm doing down here. So what I have on my lap is the yarn that was formerly an alfalfa sweater. It's very sad. I was counting on that 1,000 yards, and I didn't do it right. I screwed it up. So, not that I ruined it by reknitting the top bodice and grafting on the bottom again. That wasn't too bad. It was the fact that surprisingly, my 3 balls of woolmycin were all different colors. And I couldn't tell before that they were all different colors. So the short answer is I'm going to have to alternate skeins to reknit the sweater again, because the sweater looked great on me. It looked great. It was just the colors were wrong. So what was it? I guess on Thursday I ended up finally doing the deed of destroying it all. So here will be a sweater someday, not tomorrow. But, oh well, you live, you learn. And it isn't like I cut it into a bajillion small pieces, so I have, 8 small pieces now, I think. Yeah. And I started off with 6, so it's not the end of the world. Sorry, I didn't mean to say 6, I started off with 3. So, alas. But what can you do? The sweater wasn't right. I wasn't wearing it because the colors were off, and so better to have a pile of yarn to have a sweater you never wear. And this means that I ended up starting some new projects. So after much waffling, I ended up, what was it? So I finished, what is it? The Marie socks Saturday night. Like I was just on a mission. Like they had to be done. Like I was over with it. And then the problem was that Marie's was the last thing I had on the needles. Like there was nothing else. Well, the sweater was still on the needles, but no longer. And I had no clue at all what to knit. So I asked you guys for your opinions. Yeah, no, Allison, I do need to finish spinning the yarn for the sweater. What was it? Laura, who was the person who ended up sending me this yarn in a swap, suggested that I make the Viking socks with the dragon yarn. And I'm like, I own dragon yarn? So, it would have been pretty cool. It wasn't the oldest skein in my stash, though. But I decided, and what was it? I ended up putting up a poll in some places, so I ended up saying socks for my grandpa, Frangipani, and Stella Polaris, or anything in my queue or that I own out of the Bijou Basin Yak Silk. And then I realized Sunday morning that I was about to, not have knitting with me, and so then I ran around and I ended up winding up all the yarn for socks for my grandpa. So, this is where I am. So this is Woolmycin Twin in 3 different colorways. I have Dora, which I ended up getting this Christmas as a part of the Wool Myself for All Seasons yarn swap, which was actually from my mother-in-law, Junie. And then I have Groff Rots, which is a gray with lots of blue in it, and then Wazarots, which is a blue with lots of gray in it. So with their powers combined, we have a pretty neat looking sock. And all of this, I guess, is from my mother-in-law, Joni, because she's awesome. What was it? A couple of years ago, like my grandfather asked for socks. And then I saw him like Labor Day weekend or something like that, and he still remembered that he had asked for socks. So it was like, I think my grandpa wants socks. And so then I didn't have any manly colors of wool mycete, and I knew I wanted to make it out of wool mycete because you can just throw it in the washing machine, no big deal. And I know that my grandmother is not the woman who will hand wash socks. So it was the case where Joni ended up having more manly colors than I, so she ended up sending a bunch of skeins to me, and then I sort of figured out which ones would work the best for the pattern I made, which was the gaudy socks. But apparently my grandpa has destroyed them from wear. Like, this man is so deserving of socks, it's ridiculous. So when I saw him 2 weeks ago, he reminded me that he really likes socks. And this man is deserving of socks. He wears the socks I made him every day. So, here we go. A very deserving pair of socks. So instead of making the gaudy pattern this time, I'm making cranberry biscotti, which is why I'm going to get 3 colors. And I'm really loving how the Dora ends up bringing everything together. So the Dora is my color A, my color B is Wazarots, and then my color C is Groff Rots. And so then it ends up making for a really pretty fabric. And I ended up changing where I'm sitting today, so I think you guys can see stuff a lot better. It's much more true to color. So I ended up doing 80 stitches instead of the 72 the pattern called for, and I'm doing these on zeros because I figure that's the best way to make wool mycete indestructible is fine gauge. And unlike my husband, my grandpa actually has like manly legs and not chicken legs. So it's a little bit big on the sock wrapper, so it's actually not showing you anything any different, but oh well. So it should be good and stretchy for him. He has, whatever, muscular legs and big feet, so it works out. And I'm probably going to end up doing more repeats than the pattern called for because I think 2 repeats of this pattern is going to make for a really short sock, and I don't need to have it be that short. And I'll have to probably look up my notes, and hopefully I took some notes, or maybe I can just call my grandparents since they like to hear from me anyways. I'm awful. I just hate talking on the phone, that's all. But I'm really happy with how it's turning out so far, and I hope he really likes them. I'm assuming that he's not going to wear them out in public, but he wears them every day, so whatever. There's only so much a knitter can do. Now, I do have another project on the needles. Oh, and the other thing is I have no clue who, who the author of the Cranberry Biscotti pattern is. They didn't bother to put their name anywhere on the pages of the pattern, so. And I've knit this pattern before. I knit, I knit a pair for myself out of Swoosh Fiber Arts and then 2 colors of Lorna's Laces, and that was an amazing pair of socks. So I knew that as long as you ended up having some like cool colors together, and as long as you had like a variegated, and like you need like 1 solid and like 1 or 2 variegated, or you could do 2 variegated, or you could do a solid and variegated like I'm doing. And it's just like magic how it ends up knitting up. It just looks so cool. So really happy with that. And that's been my carry around project because, yeah, I need something to carry with me. I ended up breaking it out, what was it? So at work, we have a lunch group for all of the people who started working within the past 5 years. And they're a really cool group of people, and whatever. So it's really nice to do Wednesday lunch with them. And we ended up going to a different place than usual. And apparently, like, there are some places where they have like the lunch specials, and they get you in and out fast. I think we ended up waiting like half an hour to get seated at this restaurant. And then they just really didn't have any concept to people, like professionals who are trying to eat lunch and get back in like an hour and a half or something like that. Like, it was just foreign to them. So I ended up having like a 2-hour lunch on Wednesday. Because it was whatever. Yeah, no, it was a mess. But I ended up breaking out my socks while we were standing whatever around waiting for the table. And then everyone's like, that is such a good idea. I'm like, yes, I always have socks. I'm always prepared for the awkward times of waiting. So, I don't know. So I got a little bit of knitting done on those. But then last night, I was like struck by inspiration. So I ended up casting on for a new thing, entirely new. I've never ever made one of these before. What was it? A couple of years ago is probably too much. So I started watching Diane of Knittables last summer because I was bored and didn't have cable, and it was nice to watch knitting podcasts when I got back home from work. And one of the things that Diane made at some point was a dragon. A dragon. A stuffed animal dragon. I am so ridiculously happy about this stupid dragon. So last night, I was like, I don't know. I was like sitting around and I was like, you know what? I want to knit a dragon. I want to knit the dragon. So I went and I found the pattern. The pattern is called Joris. It's knit or whatever. It was written by some lovely Dutch lady. I'll end up linking my project page in the show notes so you'll know who the authors of the patterns are. So the dragon is called Joris. And then I was just like totally enthralled with knitting the head spikes. So this is where I'm at so far with the head spikes. And I just really, really want this stupid stuffed animal. I've never made a stuffed animal before. It turns out that the skills you need in order to make such ridiculous, for this particular guy, it is, words. It uses the same skill set that I use for the hexagon socks, so, excuse me, if you are against picking up stitches and having 50 bajillion ends, this is not the pattern for you. But if you want an adorable dragon, oh yes! So in terms of mods, what is it? So the yarn I'm using is my oldest yarn from my stash. I know that I mentioned this like on some earlier podcast sort of thing. So this is Mountain Colors, Crazy Foot in the lupine colorway. So it's a 90-10 merino nylon, and it is so it's a gorgeous combination of blues, purples, maroons, and greens. So totally jewel tones. And what was it? Like after I decided that I was going to knit the dragon, I was like searching through my stash of sock yarn, and then came across this skein, which wasn't in a plastic bag, and I'm like, you shall be the dragon, and it is so pretty and so awesome. I'm so excited about this stupid dragon. So what was it? Like that was maybe like sometime like 9:30 last night, and I ended up staying up to like 1, knitting the dragon. Like look right now, I'm on the podcast knitting the dragon because the dragon is so exciting to me right now. I think maybe the big thing about the dragon is the fact that, what is it? I think it's supposed to be 100 today, maybe. I don't know. And then I'm knitting something that I don't need to wear. You don't need to wear the dragon. You just have to have the dragon sit on the shelf and look cute. And that's all I need. So, what is it? The other thing is, like, this yarn is very, very gorgeous and knitting up quite beautifully. My only beef about this yarn is the fact that for it being a 90-10 blend, it doesn't feel merino soft to me. So I'm not sure what the story is there, but the colors are luxurious, but the feel of the yarn isn't luxurious for whatever reason. It is a very round, very plump yarn, and I'm holding it doubled because I want to have a very large dragon. If we were to turn this podcast into, what is it, a drinking game, the drinking word would be dragon. I am just full of silliness today. I guess part of this is probably that I'm excited that I unexpectedly get to see my husband. But it's also the dragon. It's also the dragon. So, we'll see how far I end up getting. I'm probably going to take this, because I'm recording so much earlier than I usually do. Well, it's like noon now, so I like to sleep in. That I can probably actually get the podcast up and then head over to Holly's Yarn Shop and knit with the other cool people there. What is it? The Friday night knitting group didn't meet because all of us were busy. So hopefully I'll be able to resume that soon because I'm really excited about the knitting group as well. But I figure it's so much nicer to knit around people than it is to like knit while watching podcasts or knit by myself with like the music playing and stuff like that. So I like to be around people. It's especially nice to be around people who aren't engineers because I get to do that a lot because I married one and I work with them and they're sort of hard to escape. I need some people who aren't engineers. So that's the story there. I also ended up making some decent progress on my spin. So I am working on the Redfish Dye Works 50/50 Superfine Merino Silk Blend that I bought at the Albuquerque Fiber Fiesta. And this is the first thing that I'm spinning out of the stuff I bought at the Albuquerque Fiber Fiesta. So this would make this the oldest fiber in my stash. Like, ooh, I'm getting rid of it. Not that I'm getting rid of stuff, but I'm using it. I'm digging deep and finding it and being like, yes, it is time. So this is the first quarter of it. I have probably another 3 ounces to go. And I wanted to show you guys the fiber because I don't think I ended up showing off the fiber before I started. So hopefully the colors end up coming through. So this is the other half of the braid. And I'm actually just going to spin this as one giant long thing. So it has like this midnight purple, regular purple, sky blue, white, navy. And it is really, really gorgeous. I'm not sure if I'm going to spin this half for long. Like when I started to spin it at the airport 2 weeks ago, was it 2 weeks ago? Maybe it was 3 weeks ago. Yeah, it was probably 2 weeks ago. I just couldn't get the half to draft, so then I ended up splitting whatever it in half in order to get started on it. But what is it? So gorgeous. There's also like hints of brown, but it doesn't seem to show up when I'm spinning. So there's almost like this, I don't know, almost orangey component to it. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Which is why I was like, what was it? It was like, I saw all of these like 50/50 braids of merino silk, and I knew I wanted one. And then I was like, this one is mostly blue, but then orange, yeah. but I'm really, really happy with how it's working out. So, so that's coming along nicely. So I haven't started the second half, but it is in my spinning bag. And what is it? So I would say that a bag like this for spinning is like a requirement. Especially like maybe if you're sitting at a wheel and you're treadling away, and then you have like a basket for fiber, like you're fine. Excuse me, the distance between the ball of fiber and where you're drafting remains about the same because you're sitting there, la-di-da-di-da. But when you're spinning with a spindle, you end up running into some interesting problems because your fiber supply is moving all sorts of directions. Because when you're spinning, you're la-di-da-di-da, working up the ladder, that sort of thing. So the distance between your chunk of fiber and you is actually pretty large. And so you could rip off chunks and then spin from that. But it's really nice to just roll the fiber into a ball. Sorry, perfect there. Roll the fiber into the ball and you throw it in this bag. And this is a bag from the knotted bag. And it has like this satiny lining on the inside, so the fiber doesn't stick to it. The fiber does want to stick to the little stars that are on the outside, but I think this is just an after effect of it being super fun, merino. And so then it feeds really nicely as you're going. And then you can shove your spindle in there when you're done spinning. And then it ends up containing it all. I'm still not very good about whatever. Oftentimes when I end up putting down my spinning, the fiber ends up pulling off from the spun yarn. So I'm not sure why that happens to me all the time, but not like it's the end of the world. So what is it? So I really love this bag. This was probably one of the nicest things that I ended up, like it ended up making spindle spinning so much easier because I didn't have to think about fiber management anymore. And so then it just sort of sits on my arm here and then peep, 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 peep. So this is whatever, a really, really handy tool. And it's pretty, and it's blue and it has stars. Because for the most part, like I don't end up going for knitting bags in general. I have my Tom Bin bag, the one bag to ruin them all, and I now have the sweater bag, but I don't have a sweater on the needles anymore. Oh, silliness. So if you, what is it? If it's the case where you end up getting really frustrated when you're spindle spinning, I would highly recommend you end up getting like a bag to hold your fiber in. And what is it? You can do like a trial run or something like that. Like you can basically make a knotted bag like that by just using a grocery bag, and that should work exactly the same way. What is it? I really, really love the bag I ended up getting. So, pretty cool. Let's see. I've bought nothing this week, which is fine, because it isn't like I've used any. Well, I haven't used up anything this week either, so that's the story there. I will not be recording next week. I'll be recording it, sorry, there's a fly. I will not be recording next week because it is because it is Labor Day weekend and I'm going to be up in Lafayette. So that's fine. So I'll be recording the weekend after that. So what is that? So Monday the 1st, Tuesday the 2nd, Wednesday the 3rd, Thursday the 4th, Friday the 5th. So it will be September 6th before I end up talking to you guys again. I'm not sure if I'll end up recording in the meantime, but I'm definitely coming by then. What else? So I'm really glad that I have more of my knitting mojo back. We'll end up seeing if I end up actually casting on for one of the lace projects. I guess it I probably, what is it? I'll probably finish the dragon before I end up casting on a lace project, but I really would like to get around to either of those things. And I hope you guys all have a very wonderful week. So, oh, that was the other thing I wanted to mention. I'm really sorry about last week. YouTube suggested that they enhance the video, and from what I could tell, I couldn't tell a difference, so I ended up saying yes. And it turned out it did this really weird thing where it was trying to like follow me, like when I was moving around and stuff like that. So I'm really, really sorry about that happening, and I'm never going to click YouTube Enhance Video again because my computer is sitting on a stool right now, and it's rock solid. It's just me who's randomly moving around in the frame. And so I'm sorry if I ended up making you feel sick. With that, I won't be doing that again. So I think that is everything, and I hope you guys have a really good week. So talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.